Hey everyone, welcome back to A Cyberactive. You are now in course 2 of our security prep series, where we'll be focusing on threats, vulnerabilities, and mitigations. In this module, we're diving into common threat actors and their motivations. Let's take a look at what we'll be covering in this session. We'll start by identifying different types of threat actors, including nation, state attackers, unskilled individuals, often referred to as script kiddies, hacktivists, and insider threats. We'll also be covering organized crime groups and shadow it operations. Next, we'll break down the key attributes of threat actors, such as whether they are internal or external, the level of resources and funding they have access to, and their level of sophistication or technical ability, which can vary widely between groups. We'll finish by exploring motivations. Why do threat actors do what they do? Motivations range from data exfiltration and espionage to service disruption, blackmail, financial gain, and even idealistic beliefs, whether political or philosophical. In some cases, it may be about revenge, creating chaos, or even cyber warfare. So let's get started and dive right in. When we talk about threat actors, we're referring to anyone who poses a cybersecurity risk, from inexperienced hackers just experimenting to well-funded and highly organized nation-state groups. These actors can include nation, states, unskilled attackers or script kiddies, hacktivists, insider threats, organized crime groups, shadow it, and even competitors. Let's break down each of these in more detail. Starting with nation, state actors, also known as advanced persistent threats or APTs. These are some of the most dangerous threat actors out there. They're highly skilled, extremely well-funded, and often work on behalf of a government. Their targets: government agencies, defense contractors, critical infrastructure, and large corporations. Their mission could be cyber espionage, intellectual property theft, sabotage, or even full-scale cyber warfare. What makes them especially dangerous is their stealth and patience. They don't crash through the front door. They quietly slip in, stay hidden, and watch everything. Once inside, they can remain undetected for months, sometimes even over a year, while they gather sensitive data, monitor internal communications, and figure out where the real value lies, often called the crown jewels of an organization. They capture emails, steal proprietary information, and slowly exfiltrate data, all without setting off any alarms. In many cases, organizations don't even realize they were breached until long after the damage is done. These actors are calculated, persistent, and dangerous, and they represent one of the most serious threats to modern cybersecurity. Next, let's talk about unskilled hackers, often referred to as script kiddies. These are individuals who are relatively new to hacking. They typically don't have advanced technical skills and instead rely on pre-made tools or scripts, often downloaded from shady corners of the internet, like the dark web. These tools are often push button simple, meaning the hacker doesn't need to fully understand how they work to use them. Now, the term script kiddies isn't meant to shame, the name just reflects their level of experience. Most of the time, these attackers aren't trying to steal data or cause serious damage. They're just curious. It is a bit like climbing a mountain just because it is there. They want to see if they can get in. For them, the challenge itself is the reward. They typically aren't part of any organized hacking group, don't have a political agenda, and aren't backed by significant resources. That said, not all script kiddies stay that way. Some do evolve into more skilled hackers or even join larger cybercrime operations down the line. Every hacker is different, but generally speaking, this group is less experienced, less funded, and not aligned with any major goals other than learning the ropes and exploring systems they shouldn't be in. Next up, we have hacktivists, a mix of the words hacker and activist. These are hackers who are driven by a cause. It could be something political, social, or environmental, like climate change, anti-censorship, or protesting deforestation. Their goal isn't usually money. It is to spread a message or bring attention to an issue. Hacktivist groups can be surprisingly skilled and even well-funded. They often deface websites, leak personal data, or launch DDoS attacks which are meant to flood a system with traffic and take it offline. Unlike some threat actors who prefer to stay hidden, hacktivists actually want you to know they were there. They want the headlines, the attention, and to make a statement. Many times they'll even leave their group's name behind as a digital signature. Their aim is disruption, not just of systems, but of the status quo. Whether or not you agree with their cause, their impact on cybersecurity can be significant. Next, we have insiders, also known as insider threats. These are people who already have access to an organization's systems, data, and tools. Think employees, contractors, or even former staff, because they know the layout, where the sensitive data is, how things work. They can cause serious damage if they choose to misuse that access. They're often motivated by financial gain, revenge, or, in some cases, blackmail. Maybe they're disgruntled, or maybe someone has offered them money in exchange for company secrets. And since they're already on the inside, they can bypass many of the defenses built to keep attackers out. According to CERT, over a ton of intellectual property theft cases involve insiders. That is a huge number, and it highlights just how big a risk they pose. But not all insider threats are malicious. Sometimes it is just human error, like someone misconfiguring a system or accidentally sharing sensitive files. Even without bad intentions, mistakes like these can lead to data leaks, security gaps, or compliance violations. So, whether it is deliberate or accidental, insider threats are a major concern, especially when it comes to protecting intellectual property and confidential business data. Next, we have organized crime groups, and just like the name suggests, these are well-structured professional operations. These hackers are usually driven by one thing: money. They're highly skilled, well-funded, and extremely deliberate in how they operate. They're patient, persistent, and know exactly what they're looking for. They're typical targets, things like point-of-sale systems, ATMs, credit card numbers, and other forms of financial data. Once stolen, this information is often sold on the dark web, sometimes over and over again. These groups treat data like currency. They gather anything that has value, personal info, login credentials, account numbers, and sell, or trade it to fund other criminal activities. They're not hacking for fun or politics. This is business. And because they're so well organized, they can be incredibly hard to detect and even harder to stop. Next up is something a little different. Shadow IT refers to individuals or teams within an organization who set up their own tech systems or applications without involving the official IT department. They might feel that IT is too slow, too strict, or just says no too often, so they take matters into their own hands. They might spin up cloud servers, build internal tools, or launch apps using a company credit card, all without proper oversight. These setups often don't follow security protocols or company standards, which create serious vulnerabilities and blind spots in the organization's defenses. And that is where the danger lies. Because no one else knows these systems exist, they're often unmonitored, unsecured, and completely invisible to cybersecurity teams. That makes them prime targets for attackers or even accidental data leaks. Now, shadow IT isn't always malicious. Most of the time, it is driven by good intentions, people just trying to get their work done. But bypassing security processes creates real risk. Even one unapproved system can open the door for data exfiltration, compliance issues, or external breaches. That is why visibility and control are so important when it comes to managing technology inside a business. And finally, a threat actor that often goes unnoticed: competitors. While they may not be part of a criminal group, some compete, are willing to cross ethical or legal lines to gain an advantage. Their motivation is usually financial gain or market dominance. This could involve stealing intellectual property, gathering sensitive business information, or even sabotaging your systems to damage your reputation. Sometimes, the goal is to beat you to market. Other times, it is simply to take you offline. These actions can range from basic spying to highly sophisticated attacks, depending on the industry, the stakes involved, and the resources they have. Some may act alone, while others might hire outside help to do their dirty work. Regardless of how it is done, corporate espionage is real, and it can be just as damaging as an external cyber attack. Threat actor attributes. Now, let's take a quick look at the attributes of different threat actors. I've put together a simple matrix for you. Feel free to pause the video and study it more closely if you'd like. But here is a quick breakdown of what it covers. You'll see each actor type, whether they're internal or external, their level of sophistication from low to high, the resources and funding they typically have access to, and finally their intent or motivation. For example, nation-state actors usually have high sophistication and funding, and their motivation is often espionage. Unskilled attackers may have little funding or skill and are often just driven by curiosity. Hacktivists, on the other hand, are typically motivated by ideological or political causes. This matrix is a great way to compare and contrast different threat types. So again, I recommend pausing here for a moment to review it and make sure you understand how each actor differs, especially in terms of skill level, motivation, and resources. Alright, let's quickly talk about attack vectors, the different ways attackers can get into a system or cause damage. First up is direct access. This means physical access to your building, your devices, or your data. Think of someone walking into your office and stealing a laptop, a hard drive, or even printed documents. How do we prevent this? Through strong physical security, things like man-traps, CCTV, security guards, and locked doors. But physical tools aren't enough on their own. That is where user awareness comes in. Everyone in the company plays a role in security. I'll say it here, and I'll keep saying it throughout the course. Security is everyone's job. If you see something suspicious, report it. If you are leaving your desk, don't leave sensitive files or USB drives just lying around. Put things away. Lock your screens. Think before you walk away. Small habits like these go a long way in creating a secure workplace. It is not just about having the right tools, it is about having the right mindset. Next, let's talk about wireless threats. Attackers don't always need to break into your building to get in. They can just sit nearby. It could be someone parked outside in a cafe across the street, or even sitting in your cafeteria, quietly trying to intercept your wireless traffic. They might use tricks like captive portals, fake login pages, evil twin access points, a Wi-Fi network that looks legit but isn't, or network sniffing to capture unencrypted data flying through the air. So how do we protect ourselves? Use tools like VPNs, strong encryption, and secure Wi-Fi settings. But just like before, user awareness is critical. People need to know not to connect to unknown networks, and to think twice before logging into anything sensitive over public Wi-Fi. Again, it is all about staying alert and making smart choices. Now, let's talk about one of the most common ways attackers get in. Email. Most of us have seen things like malware attachments, suspicious links, or those classic phishing emails. There are also more targeted versions like whaling, which go after high-level executives. Here is the problem: phishing emails can look very real. They might seem like they're from your boss, your IT team, or a trusted company. One quick click and suddenly you've opened the door for an attacker. That is why email is so effective as an attack method and why user awareness is absolutely critical. Training people to recognize these threats, think before they click, and report anything suspicious makes a huge difference. As we'll keep saying, awareness is one of your strongest defenses. Next up is the supply chain, and yes, it can be a weak spot. Even if your company has top-notch security, you could still be at risk if someone in your supply chain isn't secure. Attackers know this, and they might target vendors, partners, or third-party tools that you rely on. In some cases, they'll compromise a product or system before it even reaches you. So, the moment you plug it into your network, boom, the attackers now have a way in. This is called a downstream or watering hole attack. That is why supply chain security is so important. You need to vet your partners, understand their security practices, and make sure they match your standards. Things like SLAs, service level agreements, and vendor security assessments can help make sure everyone in the chain is doing their part to protect your data. Now let's talk about social media, a place where attackers are loved to use social engineering. They might send malicious links, fake messages, or create posts that play on social proof or group consensus. Things that make people think, well, if others are doing it, it must be safe. But these tactics are designed to trick users into clicking, sharing info, or taking actions that lead to a compromise. The best defense, you guessed it, user training and awareness. And not just once a year. This training should be ongoing and delivered in different formats, videos, quizzes, emails, so it stays fresh and top of mind. Keeping users informed is key to staying safe in a world where one bad click can cause serious damage. Talk about removable media, things like USB sticks, memory cards, or even old school CDs and DVDs. Now, most people don't think twice about plugging in a USB drive they find lying around, but attackers know that. In fact, some will intentionally drop infected USBs in parking lots, lobbies, or cafeterias, hoping someone will pick one up and plug it in out of curiosity. Once they do, malware or ransomware can be silently installed, giving the attacker a way into the network. That is why it is so important to educate users on the risks of plugging in unknown devices. We can also put in technical controls, like using group policy to block USB access or enforce corporate policies that clearly say don't use personal or unknown removable media. And like we've said throughout this module, user awareness is key. Knowing the risks helps prevent the mistakes. Now, let's talk about the cloud. Cloud services are great. They're flexible, scalable, and often more affordable. But they also come with unique security risks. Because many companies share the same cloud infrastructure, multi-tenancy, cloud providers are big targets for attacks like DDoS, distributed denial of service. If one company on that cloud gets breached, there is a chance it could affect others too, including you. That is why it is so important to know your provider's security practices. Make sure there are service level agreements, SL is in place, that outline how they handle security, breaches, and notifications. Also, check how they manage third-party vendors and whether their security aligns with your own standards. The bottom line: don't assume the cloud is always safe. Ask questions, set clear expectations, and verify their controls. Alright, that wraps up this module on the different types of threat actors, from nation-states to insider threats, and the motivations behind their actions, whether it is political, ideological, financial, or espionage-driven. We also touched on their levels of funding, sophistication, and some common attack surfaces, along with basic ways to defend against them. Hopefully you found this session informative and practical. Stick around, because up next, we're going even deeper into threat vectors and the specific paths attackers use to compromise systems. You won't want to miss it. If you found this video helpful, feel free to share it with your peers or study group. It helps support the channel and spread cybersecurity awareness. Thanks for watching. And as always, stay safe, stay informed. Bye for now.